created for the National Main Street Association annual meeting in Detroit this year. Because what I found after years of attending that meeting is that organizations and their constituents, which would be small businesses, really struggle with public relations. How to do it, who to make connections with, how to leverage it, and so that's why this was built. My background is I was the Marcom director at Carlson Marketing Group in San Francisco before we left everything to move sight unseen to the Ozark Mountains in Arkansas. Happy to tell you more about that sometime, but my background is in public relations and marketing, and I do it today. I do it for clients, I do it for myself, and I do it for my organization. I'm an executive director of a Main Street organization in my town. So this is real on the ground, how I use it, how I help other people use it, and how I've seen results. This is a pretty fast presentation. We only have about 50 minutes, so I'll do my best. If you think of a question later, feel free to email me. It's jacquelinewoolven@gmail.com. You can just email me your question. And if I don't cover something that you really wanted covered, also just send that to me. And I will be sending this whole presentation with my cheery little voice, my cheery little Monday morning voice, to you so you can replay it or share it with friends or whatever you want to do. But interestingly, I had included Constant Contact because it's part of my marketing tools before I was even contacted by them to be part of their local expert program. So this is just sort of an interesting twist. I actually really use it. So here we go. I'll just go ahead and start. Well, we think we will. All right. Someone is telling your story. So what story is being told about you and who's telling it? This is particularly important for organizations and for towns, because I definitely work with towns, and for small businesses. Someone's telling your story and you need to find out who's telling it. For instance, if you're a small business, people are checking into your business when they are there, and they're writing reviews about your business on their blogs, on Yelp, on TripAdvisor. You don't even know what they're saying about you. So that's happening to small businesses all over the nation. And if you're an organization, that can also be happening to you. People can be writing good and bad about your organization. And especially for towns, people are definitely writing about you. There are good experiences and there are not so good experiences. This is the key, and if you don't have this set up yet for your organization, the leaders in your organization, your business, whatever it is, you need to do this. It's called a Google Alert. You can Google it, Google Alert. You can put in the search terms that you want. So let's say you were running an organization, Mercy Hospital, wherever. You would do a Google Alert for that. Every time it showed up online, you would get an alert. Now, I do that in a daily digest because I don't need to see them as they come in necessarily, but I have them for my town. I have them for the small businesses within my district. I have them for organizations that I work with. I have them for my name. So every time that ends up somewhere online, I'm alerted. I will tell you, it doesn't happen when people write about you on TripAdvisor, Yelp, or any of those review sites. Those you actually have to go out and look. But if somebody writes an article about you or a blog post or mentions you in any other way online, you will get an alert sent to you. This is an important part of public relations, knowing what other people are saying. Because, so this is for Detroit. The fun part was prior to going, I thought I'd do a quick search of what people were saying about Detroit. Well, Detroit's kind of a mess right now, so there were a lot of things being said about Detroit. And it's important for you to understand what people are saying because you don't necessarily have to react to it, but you have to know. So step one, homework, set up your Google Alerts. This was funny. So our local news always has a constables on patrol. So this comes up every single time. So everything that happens in Eureka Springs, good and bad, I get a Google News alert for. So this was one of them. So what is a story? This is what I think that most people struggle with in public relations. Do I have something relevant to say? Most stories are good things in your organization and business. When you have a good story to tell about anything, that's public relations worthy. It may not necessarily be printed in your local newspaper or in your regional or state newspaper, but it is okay to craft the story and send that out. Starting to cultivate those good stories is what public relations is all about. So there's story ideas these are for all kinds of organizations and businesses. Openings, anniversaries. For cities, you're planting a tree, flowers, baskets, oh my. Positive city work, partnerships that you're engaged in. The list is kind of never ending. Because what it allows you to do is start to think about it, well, what are we doing that's new? What are we doing that's intriguing? And letting that go out into the world. And the interesting thing about public relations now is that it isn't just about getting in the newspaper or getting in the local media. It's about sending it out to your constituents, your customers, putting it online, putting it in your social and Facebook and Twitter. It has a much larger reach than it used to. Traditional PR was, if it didn't get in the newspaper, then you didn't do a good job. Trust me, I know, because that was part of my job, was to make sure that it got actually on the news. And if that didn't happen, it was considered sort of a PR fail. And what's happening now is you can leverage all the ways that things are published as positive PR for your company, organization, or small town. Here's some more. This is a long list. Highlight an entrepreneur. So if you are in a downtown district, you could highlight any of your entrepreneurs. Or if you have somebody doing something really exciting in your organization, highlight that. Let's say they're raising a lot of money for an organization that isn't part of your company, but is an exciting thing, like they started a race or they started a volleyball tournament for something. That's a really great thing to highlight, that they're an employee of your organization and they're doing this amazing thing. It's a great way to get PR. Events, upcoming, right before, right after, and post-event impact. This is where I see most people fall down on the job when it comes to public relations. They might put something out before the event. They hope that the social editor for their regional or local paper will cover the event, and then that's it. Now, you can sometimes guarantee that the social editor is going to show up, but that's not a promise that they make usually. So what's important in your event planning is to create upcoming press releases about the event, why it's important, right before, because that top-of-mind presence, that'll get you in the paper usually pretty simply, or even in your local news channels, they love that right before stuff. We're talking about 2 to 3 days before the event. Right after the event, being able to recap it with maybe a photo that you captured, and then the post-event impact. Why did you have the event? How did it impact your community or organization or the people who attended? That last one is probably the most vital, because you have these events to raise money or to raise awareness or to teach new skills, and that is the piece that gets missing but might end up in the business section, which is an important section of most newspapers or most media channels, and probably will level up the recognition of your organization or company. Meeting agendas. For really small organizations, you can easily recap your meeting with your agenda or your minutes in sort of a story form. My local newspaper will print anything, and you can easily get your agenda in there. Volunteer spotlight. This is something you can do on a regular basis. There's really positive press happens when we take the shift off our own organization or company and on an employee or a volunteer. And so putting that spotlight on them and having that be a regular feature of your PR calendar is an easy way to get your story out. The good news story, if anything good is happening, and I'm talking about anything good, is really helpful. I noticed that in most local news, both in print and on television, will run a good news story. In our own small town, we've been lucky to be featured both on ABC Nightly News and in People magazine for good news stories. There is a desperate call for things that are happening that are positive, and if you have anything that is making a positive impact on your community or the people that you work with, craft those stories. Highlight a national trend to a local initiative. Being aware of what's happening nationally will allow you to be an expert in your field. So that is a great PR strategy. This is what's happening nationally or even globally, and this is how we're attacking that problem. That's a very impactful story. People, human interest stories, for sure, new employees, expansions, even new product lines. I will tell you, they're not going to run this necessarily in your local paper, but this is great for a social media blast, so write it out as an actual PR story that you have a new product line or you have a new partnership or you're offering a new service, and get that out there. And then milestones, people who have been with the company X number of years, how many years you've been in business, all of those milestones are good stories. Focus on, this is a big tip for people who don't quite understand how to make relationships with reporters. I have a really fun story about this. So you focus on one or two outlets and follow them on social media. So for my small town, visiting during the fall is a really important component to the travel industry. We have beautiful fall color, and people want to know when it is, right? When is that going to happen? Like, when's the magic date? So 3 or 4 years ago, I started really following our local weather person, Weather Dan, and just following on social media and having, you know, slight conversations with them. All media people are on social media. I would be hard-pressed to find someone who isn't using social media if they're in the media world. It's easy to find them. So I just started having these conversations, just light conversations. I wasn't asking for anything. I was just responding. He's a weather guy. He loves weather, and so I just was responding, knowing that eventually what I wanted to do was have him be the fall foliage expert for our region, and to build that relationship so that he would only give my organization that information. It's quite a coup in the sense that everybody wants to know when the fall leaves are going to turn, and now I'm the one who gets to send out that PR every Thursday until, I guess, we're into brown sticks. So after 4 years of developing that online relationship, he agreed to do it for our organization this year. So yes, that's very long tail. That's what that's called. It took 4 years of relationship building for me to feel comfortable enough to ask him for this request, but it's a success story. So focus on a few media personalities in your region that you want to create rapport with, and then start interacting with them on Twitter, on Facebook, however that is, in a light way. Follow their stories, like them, all of those things. And then eventually, when you have a story that, or a need or a fit that you think is a good match, you're going to have a greater chance of getting them to cover that story. Use permission-based PR. So this is what this is about. So permission-based PR is, you don't just blast all of your media outlets with your press release. You can do that, but your chances of being covered are pretty slim. You know, I definitely have a list of 152 state and regional media people, and when I have something that's of significance, I will send that out. But the ones who actually cover the information, event, or milestone are the ones that I've developed a relationship with. And usually what happens is I will send that out to the whole list, but I send a special note to those that I've developed a relationship with. And I get covered. I'm in a pretty good position. I get covered every week in our local newspaper, and I get covered at least once to twice a month in our regional paper. So those relationships, taking the time to build those relationships really matters. You can use LinkedIn InMails. I think that how it works is you get a few for free, and then if you become a subscriber to LinkedIn, you can have unlimited. So let's say you find a media personality that you think is a good fit, and this could be regional, national, whatever that is, and you want to send them that pitch. You can definitely use LinkedIn InMails. That works for the media. They check those, they look at those. I will say don't overuse them. Use snail mail. Now, I have been in the business long enough that we used to do everything by actual U.S. Post mail. But this is still an effective way, especially if you're a product developer or you have a new product line or you have product in your store you want to highlight. You send a sample of that packaged nicely with the press release in it, and surprisingly, those still get covered, especially when you have gift sections or they're highlighting holiday gifts or Mother's Day gifts. That's definitely calendar-based, but everybody loves a free something, especially in your state and regional papers, because not everyone is using that tactic. It still works. Monitor reporters using a private Twitter list. So even if you watch the local news on television, which I don't do that often, but I do have a private, you can make lists in Twitter that are private, that no one knows you have them on a list, and you put your local media, you find all their Twitter handles, and you put them in that list, and that's how you start to cultivate relationships with them, because you're seeing what they're posting. That's a really effective way. Again, I would pick 5 to 10 at the most that you're trying to follow on Twitter in that private list. It can become overwhelming. A lot of reporters are tweeting everything, every story they write or every byline. And so keeping that truncated to the ones that you really want to create a relationship with is important. Become a thought leader by sharing helpful industry data. What's interesting about that component is, although they may not print the press release or feature the press release that you sent out about your thoughts on industry information, you may become the expert that they call when they need an interview. I've been known in my region to be an expert on retail, and so when they need retail numbers or retail information or the impact of small business, I am the resource that many of our media outlets will use, which is a great tool because then I get to put our organization out there. And then lastly, do something philanthropic or green. Either give money or time or have a green initiative. You would be surprised that even the smallest amount of giving or changes to your light bulbs is still a really hot story for most people. Or you can have aliens abduct cheerleaders. If you're lucky enough to have that, then you know that's a news story for everyone, right? Even we haven't had that in our small town. 'Tis the season. Every single season has a story. You have to have seasonal tie-ins. We are a culture that is on a buying cycle. So understanding that Christmas, St. Patrick's Day, Easter, 4th of July, Halloween, etc. is really an exceptionally relevant PR strategy. Whether you're retail, a nonprofit organization, it really doesn't matter. The interesting thing is that if you can tie whatever you're doing into what's happening with the season, you have a greater chance of being coveraged. And for me, I'm always thinking the business section, not just the calendar of events. I want my organizations to be considered thought leaders, and having seasonal tie-ins is an easy way to do that. And we all know now that Halloween is the second largest buying season. It's crazy to me. People buy more stuff for Halloween than I ever imagined. But if you have a seasonal tie-in to Halloween, either good or bad, depending on how that works for you, and you can present your tie-in to the business section or your local media that's not just an event, that could be a pretty powerful message. Think people. Your people are just as interesting as Beyonce. They are. I know it's hard to compete with celebrities, but in your town, region, state, your people are the nuts and bolts of the community. You're the ones that are on the ground making a difference. And so although you may never end up on Entertainment Tonight, you do have the possibility of ending up in your local or state news channels. People love stories about people. What I find most that happens in most organizations is that they're talking about their event or they're talking about some initiative that they have, and that's great. But great stories always begin with the people, because if I can tie them into the customer or the employee or the volunteer that it's made an impact with, that's a much greater story than me just telling the facts. People are inherently interested in what people think. Business milestones are boring when you're just giving the milestone or we have a new product. But if you say, we have this new product and we developed it because we wanted to help children in an ICU unit, and this is the story of why we developed that, and these are the people, and you can connect them with people that it's actually helped, that's a huge boon to your company and to the people that you actually helped. If you put people in your stories, in your PR, you will see a significant difference in the coverage that you get. Tie your story with a customer, volunteer, or somebody that's been impacted by the work that you do. Think photos. People love a photo in the paper, in the media. This is a no-brainer. And you actually all carry some of the best cameras you've ever carried in your life every day. This is a great photo. It's a little sad, right? She's eating herself. Anyway, but people love a good story. They love a good photo. And so if you can capture an image that tells the story, that will get you further. Interestingly, sometimes they'll just run the photo, which I am fine with, if it will get my client or our organization or whomever's information out. Create your own channel. So here's the difference of how old school PR worked and how it works now. Old school PR was, I develop a relationship with the news media, they might or might not send out my information. Now you're able to leverage social media as news. That change, that shift has allowed you to own your PR instead of relying just on it being covered by your media outlets. You are your media outlet. Using your blog, using your website, using Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all of those things, LinkedIn, you can write your press releases and then send them out to those channels, basically creating your own media channel for your organization or your company. This is the big aha I think that people need to have, is that yes, it is great if your media channels, the traditional media channels cover your organization. But here's the deal. They have limited resources. They are cutting back on a regular basis. So instead of relying or hoping that they're going to cover every story that you have, just create your own news channel. Just continue to write the PR stories and have the PR photos in traditional PR format and send those out. And they may or may not get covered, but it doesn't really matter because the opportunity to share them across all platforms has just grown. So don't just rely on your traditional media sources. Create a YouTube channel. If you have anyone in your company or organization who has any video capability at all, you can capture your stories using video. That video then can become B-roll for your local media outlets. So it's worthy because you can create this YouTube channel and you might have the possibility of it being in a traditional media source, but create your own YouTube channel. Follow your reporters on Twitter. If you don't know about HARO, it's Help a Reporter Out. It's helpareporter.com, and you can become a source for stories. Every day, 3 times a day, I get an email from HARO asking for different experts in different fields. Everything from lifestyle to product to science and business. I've been featured, I personally have been featured in national news media because I've responded to a request by a writer or a reporter. It's free for you to be an expert, and you can sign up for your organization, and you might be a fit. What I have happen often in small businesses is they get inundated. They feel like, oh my gosh, 3 emails a day from this organization, I can't handle it. Here's the thing. I don't look at it every day. I delete it some days because I'm busy and I'm doing other things. But every once in a while, I have a week that's slower or I have a day that's slower, and I will look at what's coming in and see if I'm a fit or my organization's a fit or one of my businesses are a fit or if I know anyone that's a fit, and send that information to them. You usually respond via email, and your quote or your cut line or even a full-fledged interview can happen based on Help a Reporter Out. Instagram is an interesting way to show your story. You can do it, all those photos that you're capturing can be, that's a news outlet. It's not traditional, but it's definitely a place for you to show your story. On Facebook, publish your press releases, just like you publish any other post. It elevates the exposure of your organization, and instead of just being story format, granted, it's in PR format, but that's okay. I feel like what that shows is we're the real deal, and you never know, a media outlet might pick that out. And then how I use my email list. So I use Constant Contact for all of my media email. Most people send email to reporters just in their regular email program, you know, Outlook or Mail or whatever you're using. And I would recommend that today you change that. I have it all set up in regional, local, different business sectors, people I know, lists in my Constant Contact. And when I send out to them, I can pick the ones that it's most relevant to. I can pick individuals that it's most relevant to. But the most important piece of that is I know if they opened it or not. I can tell if they clicked my links because Constant Contact allows for that. I know if they went to my website to read more about the story. And it is probably has been one of the most effective tools that I've used, because when I know they've opened it, especially if it's someone I have a relationship with, then I can follow up in my personal email saying, hey, Charlie, I saw you read my my press release. If there's any more information I can get to you, I'd really appreciate it. That has gotten me and organizations I work with more attention than just blasting it out of my regular email. The other piece about it is that I can send it to all of my social media channels right from Constant Contact. I don't have to create separate posts in LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook. I can send it right from Constant Contact. It gets posted immediately that it gets sent out, and it cuts down in the work that I have to do. It's an incredible tool for public relations. It also allows me to understand who's responding, move those people to lists so that I can cultivate better relationships with them in other social media channels. It's just been the most effective tool I've ever used. And this was, remember, before I even started doing any kind of work with Constant Contact, I have been using the tool for years. And once I transferred my public relations to them, that made my PR work have real value. And I could tell people, oh, I could tell my board of directors, well, I sent it out to 115 people and I know that 92 opened it. That is a really good way to be able to say it is effective, it is working, because remember, you're not always going to be picked up by the local media or regional or state. They just don't have enough people. But at least they're reading about it. So write it, send it to the media, and then blast it to your list. So here's the other piece of using Constant Contact. Not only do I use the press release that I sent to my media lists, I wait a couple days usually to see if the media will pick it up. And either way, I send it to my whole list. And interestingly, I get a lot of positive responses from that PR format. And here's, in Constant Contact, there's a template for it. Just search press, and there's a template for you to use. It elevates the stature of the organization or the small business, as opposed to just being a newsletter or a product offering or you're selling something. It's like, oh, this is sort of a real deal kind of thing. And so you have this great opportunity. You don't have to double your work. You just replicate it and then send it to the rest of your list. So it gets like bang, bang, bang. You get email to your press, it can go to your social, and it can go to your whole list. So one time you write it, but you get a lot of leverage out of it. So sometimes you have the opportunity to write your own story. So I talked about that staff is short at most media outlets, and it's true. Sadly, they have had tremendous cutbacks. On the plus side, that's a real win for you because they often need stories. You can look for opportunities to appear in print or online media news sections or columns that are hard for journalists to fill. Some examples could include business entrepreneur advice column. I know that I've been asked to write that no less than 6 times in the 6 years I've been doing the work as an executive director. I always turn it down only because I don't want to have a weekly column, but I get asked frequently. I have written pieces for other business advice columns, but I haven't wanted to take on a column myself. What's new in your downtown? If you're a Main Street district, you can easily just write a what's new. You can do that with your organization, and you can do that with your company. Just send that in. A local favorites column. So if you are a brick and mortar, you can easily use your shop as, this is what the locals love. The idea of shop local has grown exponentially over the past, I'm going to say 5 to 10 years, and then really grew with the Small Business Saturday that's part of the American Express program. And so people want to know what locals like. It doesn't matter where you are. People want to know that locals like this shirt, they like this soap, they like this chafing dish. You'd be surprised. That question in a small business is asked more frequently than not. What do the locals like? Business highlights, you probably could write a column just about what's happening, and then a nonprofit spotlight. If you offer to write an article for your local media about other nonprofits, you probably will get that in the paper because they don't have time to cover all of the nonprofits in their area. And you win a lot of friends and supporters. Here's the deal. 52 weeks equals 52 stories. I know it's Monday at 9:40 and you're thinking, you just gave me a lot of work. But this is work that's really relevant to your company and your organization. I plan my PR calendar when I plan my work plan. So I have it already set out. I know what stories I want to write. I do it quarterly because things do change, but I know weekly what story I'm going to push out. Now remember, I'm pushing out to my list, to my social media, and to the media. So this is why this is an important component of your organization. I just create a plan. That's it. What your work plan is for, let's say, till the end of the year, you could sit down and create a title. This is all I ask organizations or companies to do. Just create a title, a subject of what that possible PR story could be, looking at their work plan and how they could schedule out that PR every week. It seems like a lot of work, but because you can leverage it across all social media platforms, it's part of your work anyway. And so I think it's incredibly valued to sit down and make that plan. Media relationships. It is always just about relationships. Some of the most important relationships that your business or organization can make or cultivate is with your media. That's your local, regional, state, national media. And because they're all online, you have this possibility. I will share with you that you can't always just push information to them. They're busy, they're on tremendously tight deadlines, and they don't always want to be asked to cover your organization. It is perfectly acceptable to like what they are already doing. That effort just to like the work they're doing can move you forward. Nothing is worse than sending a pitch to a reporter that doesn't fit the work that they're doing at all, and you haven't leveraged the relationship, you haven't tried to build a relationship, and the pitch doesn't match. It's a huge mistake that I see happen all the time. People get a list of media, either that's been handed down to them or someone gave them. It's not a real fit for their company or organization. They don't know any of those people, and they just send something out. Well, you're not going to get covered. The chances are very slim. So the time that you take matters. I let people make goals. I want to make a relationship with this local reporter. That's who we want to cultivate our relationship with this year. And then you can add one the following year. They know you're cultivating relationships with them. It's not a bad thing. I know that sometimes people feel like networking can be quid pro quo or whatever that, like I'm always asking. But really you become interested in what they're writing and their career and what they're doing, and then it's reciprocal because they begin to care about you too. And there's media everywhere. So your internet media, your television media, your radio, magazines, newspapers. There is still a lot of radio and a lot of print. In our own region, I think there's 17 regional magazines, which I find phenomenal that they're printing these regional magazines. But search them out. A good exercise for an employee or for a volunteer is to gather all of the media resources that would seem relevant to your business or your organization. Bring them in, bring the magazines in, or at least capture them in a private Pinterest board, all the different media relations that you might have, all the magazines that might be of relevant to what you're doing. I mean, you might have some specialty and you're a fly fishing company and you go out and find all the fly fishing magazines. A resource for you, by the way, on that is the Writer's Market. There's a book called The Writer's Market, and it's really for writers to pitch stories. But you can use it to look at all the niche publications that happen nationally, and maybe there's a niche just for your organization. Philanthropy magazines, just all kinds of things that might be relevant to the work that you're doing. So you have them all gathered, and in an annual meeting you sit down and you decide which media outlets you're going to focus on. You're not going to do them all, and maybe every year you add one or two, but this is a great start to get started in your PR. They still, the media people have to do amazing things, and you have to do amazing things back to them, and they still like gift baskets, lunch, and B-roll. So you get to know your local journalists and who cover your industry, those that cover your industry, and you invite them to lunch. Sometimes they can't because they're too busy. That's okay. You have just made the invitation to them. Offer them background, a briefing on your business, organization, or district with no strings attached. You just give them a one sheet or send them a one sheet saying, I just didn't know if you knew about us, and here's some information. You bring them a gift basket. In most media outlets, there are lots of people running around on fast deadlines, and if you brought a basket of cookies, believe me, they will not only eat them, but they will be grateful to you. It sounds silly, but it's still an important piece of that. You look up on the publication's website, you'll find phone numbers, email addresses, Twitter, Facebook, you name it. You can search all of those company names or keywords to find out who might cover your industry. All of that work can be done online. You have the opportunity to sort of, in a very low budget way, wine and dine them. If you have a new product line that you're featuring in your location or your store, you can put that in a gift basket and send it and say, I just wanted you to see something new that we're offering. It's really that simple. This is my contact information. Feel free to contact me. There's a lot that you can do with public relations. It isn't anymore just about getting on your local news. That's great. Everybody wants that. I know that. And nationally, everybody wants to get in the national news. But it isn't always just about that. It's about sharing the relevant stories about your company or your organization on a regular basis and developing the relationships with the media. So if you make that a goal for 2015 or in the next quarter, I bet that you're going to see a difference. And if you do, email me. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see what you're doing. I don't have it in here, and I'm just going to say, I usually get asked, what do you do about bad press? So there's really bad press, and then there's just sort of bad press. There's really bad press when an organization, somebody does something that's unethical, or something is, the company inadvertently did something to the environment. Stuff happens in organizations. That is the work of a professional PR person usually, where they address the media and craft the message. That's usually a very controlled message that you're going to send out, and you spend the time to write that with real thought. Don't react, just thoughtfully answer the question or address the issue. Now there's sort of bad press, like, I don't know, somebody didn't like your event, or they have a misunderstanding. That doesn't always need to be responded to. Sometimes, what do they say? All press is good press. So sometimes you just let things roll. It's up to your organization to decide, is it really bad press, or is it just kind of bad press? I've found, for the most part, most things are kind of bad. I've worked with organizations that have had nationally and internationally really bad press, and that's a totally different ballgame. For most of you, the organizations that you're working with, I can't imagine anything would go wrong. So I don't know, Paige, are there questions? Because I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, so Keisha has a good question. What does sit down and plan it look like? Do you carve out 4 hours on a Monday, or do you, or the first week of the last month of a quarter? What kind of time does the plan it and make it happen?
Okay, so I do it a couple ways. I'm fortunate that in my own business and in the businesses I work with and in my organization, we create a yearly work plan, right? So I know a year in advance what I'm going to be doing. So how I develop that plan is I have a 12-month calendar that I physically print out because there's a lot of erasing and so forth. You could do it in Excel, you could do it however you wanted, but I print out a 12-month calendar all on one page, and I add my work plan to that so I can see when my events or my programs or whatever it is that I'm doing, or the product launches or any of those things. And so then I can easily fill in, I take the Mondays usually, and I fill in what that story would be based on the work plan. And then there's holes, right? Because you definitely don't have a product launch or an event every week. Well, if you do, you're a superhero. But most people don't. And so then you have gaps. And that's when you start filling in some of the other information. And I do that on a quarterly basis. What would I fill in for that quarter? What would be interesting for that quarter? And then I start to craft the topics of what those would be. Sometimes those topics take a little time. I need to find a volunteer to highlight, or I need to showcase a new product, or I need to, talk about an anniversary or whatever that is. So the initial planning happens, it's probably a couple of hours where I plot out the year, and then quarterly, again, probably a couple of hours. So all in all, I'm going to say 8 to 12 hours a year for 52, press releases, which is pretty phenomenal. Now, there are some dead times that we don't do a lot of, and it would depend on your organization. And so there are times where I'm not sending something out just based on the industry that I'm in, or understanding the calendar. But yeah, those 12 hours I spend a year, I can pretty much craft that plan, or at least the topic. And I'm flexible. That topic might change. But it's also great to show. So if you are in a marketing department or in a PR department, and you need to show anyone in your organization, well, this is what the plan is, this is what we're covering, that work is also well put out, because you're showing that you're looking forward. Most organizations and companies want you to be able to look forward when you're developing a plan. So it doesn't take that long. What takes longer, of course, is writing it all, right? But if you have it planned, at least you can be thinking about what you're writing.
Lots of great
I hope that
information.
helps.
We are hanging out for questions. We will have a recording sent to you, so Jacqueline will send you the presentation as well as the recording. You had mentioned too, Jacqueline, about list of media, a media list, and how not just to blast out topics. So you don't suggest that then? Again, you follow them online to kind of see what stories they post, to understand how you can help, or what would best fit their media goals. But are you saying don't do a media list then?
Well, I do. In Constant Contact, I have multiple media lists. I
Okay.
have a regional list. I have a business list. I have, whatever it is, that would be relevant. I have the social, all the social coverage, right? They're all on a list. But you're right. It's very rare that I send out a press release to every single media outlet or reporter or editor that I have, or that I know, or that I have gathered their information. Because what I found is they don't respond, because that's just, they're getting press releases. I think what I should be clear about, they're getting press releases on a rapid fire basis every single day. So if you don't have a relationship with them, you just go to the bottom of the pile. I hate to say that, but that's just how it is, and they don't have enough hours in the day. So the chances of you getting covered are with building the real relationships. Sometimes, I will say, there's a caveat to that. When something really big happens, a really important award or a grant or anything where it's a huge significant difference in the organization or the business, then I blast it everywhere. Because anything that has to do with money or recognition, sometimes those things are covered because they're feel-good stories. So that's the only caveat with that. Like if your small business wins some sort of green award or some, women in business award or anything that would be really special recognition, that's different. That can go ahead and go out to your whole list.
And in doing something like that, when it is a big, you have to have eye candy. So the subject line, would you kind of give us an example of, what would you put? You wouldn't just say, hey, a PR release, because that wouldn't be entertaining.
Never. It always says, it always says for immediate release, always. So that's the first part of the subject line, for immediate release. And then it's a colon, and then I have my subject line. And it, it can be like the partnership I just had with the weather guy. KNWA partners with Main Street District for official fall foliage report. Well, that was covered all over the place, which was, interesting. Not in competing media, mind you, but it was covered in local media and so forth. So, yeah, it's really important that it's for immediate release, must be at the beginning. That's what they're looking at. They need to know that, oh, this can go today. And then whatever your subject line, and it does need to be kind of hot. You can spend more time developing your subject line sometimes than just writing the actual press release, because you do need to make it media worthy. You need to make it pop off the subject line.
And the more you can conveniences, the more you can make it convenient for them with pictures and also links. Keep it short and simple, but so they don't have to scramble, right?
Oh, it's all in the press release. Absolutely. I have the photo I want to use. I have, if there's a link to video or B-roll, that's there. I create the story for them. A lot of media outlets are printing stories pretty verbatim, so it's written in a tone that would be appropriate for a news outlet. And exactly, all of the links and the information and who's in the photo, that's a very important piece to this. You have to say who is in the photo. They're going to want to know that from left to right. They want to know who is in each one, and that can just go right under your photo in your cut line. And that's an important piece. And again, using Constant Contact and being able to just use the press template, I think there's 4 or 5 of them, that allows you to just sort of follow the template, and it's going to be in a format that media is comfortable with, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel here.
And when you have a picture, of course, concern would be, copyright or permission-based. I mean, how do they know that it's okay to publish that picture that you have given? Is there anything that they need to do to make sure that
Right. It's usually a photograph that someone within the company or the organization has taken, so that's fine. And it says photos submitted. And if I do have a copyright on it, if a photographer has taken it who I've either not hired but I've asked permission, I will say photo used by permission and then the name of the photographer. It's a pretty simple way, and then what happens is that goes in a really tiny font when it goes in the actual newspaper. It's a pretty small thing. If they use the still in your news media, on television, that will get lost, but at least you know that you sent that information in. So, and I send the photo in color, because you never know if it will be in color. More than likely if it's printed, it won't be. It'll be in black and white, but I go ahead and send it in color, and I send it at a pretty good resolution for the newspaper, 300 dpi. It's a pretty big file, but it's worth it because I need them to use it right from that. And if they don't have the time or the energy to go, download a photo from somewhere else. If they want more photos, which often happens, they'll contact you. But the more you can do that's directly in that email, the better. Don't put a Word document. Don't have an attachment. they're not going to open it. They want to be able to read. What happens, I think they read the subject line, they know who it's coming from, or the company or the organization, and they either read it or they don't. I mean, that's as far as you get. I think you get 8 to 12 seconds, and if they have some familiarity or it has some relevance to what they're doing, then they may go forward. And I don't need them or want them to have to go online and link or click to something else. I want them to be able to have everything they need right there in that. You also have your contact information and your phone number. I definitely have them have follow-up. They'll just call you, so answer your phone because they'll just call you.
Very good points. And then Sheila asked, yeah, Sheila, be getting the PowerPoint as well as the recording and any helpful information of links that Jacqueline has as well. Here's another question from Deborah. Thank you guys for the questions. You mentioned that a few national programs picked up your local stories. Can you give an example and what made them pick those up?
Yeah, so we have an incredible healthcare program here called ECHO, and it serves the local community that doesn't have insurance, and it's volunteer run by the physicians, and all of the support staff is all volunteer. And so that was picked up by ABC News, it was picked up by Oprah, and it was picked up by People magazine, because this was before the Affordable Care Act, and this served a population, of about, I think there were actively, 500 to 750 patients in that program. And what was phenomenal about it was that the doctors were really donating all of their time. Now, it is probably one of the more tremendous feel-good stories, because it was dental care and health care and prescription medication help and eye care. I mean, you name it. It was full service. And the program still runs, actually. ECHO still runs. And we had the local opportunity in our county. There was an ABC affiliate reporter that lived here, and so we showed her the story. Basically, the organization showed her the story, and because she felt it was strong enough, she carried it to ABC News, and then that's when Oprah picked it up, and then People. And the thing about that, so that was all about relationships, though. Granted, they were fortunate that we had this regional reporter in our area, but there are national affiliates in every state, usually in your capital. That's usually because they're looking at usually at political news. But getting to know your regional affiliate, there's AP affiliates, there's Reuters affiliates, and every news channel has an affiliate. You would have a greater opportunity of getting on the national stage if you got to know those people. Yeah, it was pretty lucky. And we get lots of good press. I have to say, I live in one of the most beautiful small towns in America, and we are on every list, top 10 list, the coolest town in America, best art town in America. I mean, best motorcycle ride in America. We're always in the top 10 of all these different things. So we're really fortunate to just be in this incredible location. But really, that happens too because of the relationships that people have made with the media. That goes the farthest.
Jacqueline, tons of great information, wonderful tips and resources that you provided. Again, we'll send out the recording and the PowerPoint, and just want people to know, go follow her online. She is a blogger and also a consultant, so if you want to reach out to her, she'll do a 30-minute consultation with you or help you with your email or social media. Of course, this is what she loves to do, is to teach people and help them get their story out as well. And don't forget, a lot of you are from Arkansas. You might want to check out Constant Contact Seminars, that's plural, constantcontactseminars.com. She'll send that link to you as well. That's our upcoming schedule for webinars and seminars, constantcontactseminars.com. And I'm going to be in Arkansas, believe it or not, Berryville, Arkansas on October 8th. And then I'm going to also be in Springdale on October 9th. So October 8th, Berryville, and October 9th from 11 to 1, we're doing a lunch and learn. And I'm going to talk about email marketing and how to bring your social together with email. So again, Jacqueline's going to be somewhere else because she's a national speaker as well, so she's touring somewhere else, but she'll be having other ones as well. So constantcontactseminars.com, find that information online if you want to come see us in Arkansas, great, or online with webinars.
I should say, right, and if your organization is looking for a speaker, please just send me an email and we'll see what we can do to make that happen.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a marvelous Monday. And Jacqueline, fantastic job.
Thank you, Paige. I can't say enough good about you or Constant Contact. It's really made a difference in just the media relationships that I've had. So thanks, and thanks for the opportunity, everybody. And happy Monday. I hope your week is sensational.